Welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time visiting. My name's Tina Hurley. I'm the founder and CEO of Less Leg, More Heart. It's a charity that helps amputees with a variety of service offerings, support, and supplies to improve their quality of life. If you're interested in more information, please check out our website, www.lesslegmoreheart.com. We have some exciting things coming up. We've partnered with Levitate to gift running blades to amputees in need. We have a cornhole tournament coming up on the 4th of June in Manchester, New Hampshire, and we actually are running our first gala for our 5-year anniversary on the 2nd of December this year. So stay tuned. Social media is a great place, and YouTube, of course, where you're finding us here on cable TV. Thank you for being here. This platform is a place where we bring inspiration, motivation, educational content, vetted service or good providers to you in the community so you can understand what's around you, what stories are around you, what businesses are around you with people that have experience in things that you either should know about or may not necessarily be aware of in the circles that you travel. And so broadening your education about things that are around here will help you hopefully lead your best life, or at least create questions that are seeds planted that eventually can grow into curiosities. Without further ado, I have an incredible guest today, a business owner in Nashua, New Hampshire, Lois Herman. Lois, thank you for being here today.
I'm delighted to be here with you.
We've had some conversations previously. I'm actually on her radio station this coming Sunday, and some of her story and the things that she's doing was very intriguing to me. I am really excited to lessen my ignorance further in the world of the work that she does and to have her share her story with you today. Lois, why don't you tell folks, like, where are you from? What did you do formerly for work, and sort of what are you doing now, and how did that all segue?
Thank you, and I think that's a really important place to start so that people understand that I have a very analytical mind, a very solid background before I go into that otherworldly information. So my background, as is yours, was in medicine. I retired after 40 years in diagnostic imaging. I was a pioneer in the field of ultrasound. One of the very first people to use ultrasound back in the 70s. And I use it for, started with OB, then it got into doing abdominal, vascular, cardiac, all the different arenas. And I had a fabulous career in that I grew into actually developing products. I have patents in my name, or I was named on patents for designing ultrasound systems for ergonomic use, that sort of thing. And right here, it was Hewlett-Packard that hired me and moved me up here to Andover to work there to help develop their ultrasound system. So that was a fabulous career. Retired after all these years as Director of Clinical Services. But when I moved from Knoxville, Tennessee to Westford, Massachusetts, I moved into a house with a ghost. And that kind of changed my life. So here I am, analytical, medical model kind of a person. And here I have this 7-year-old daughter who is seeing this lady who comes and sings to her at night. She's not afraid, but she keeps talking about a lady. And I'm like, what do you do with that? So I'm talking with a new neighbor. I had just moved in this lovely neighborhood, talking with a neighbor. And she said, oh, that sounds like that could be Judy. I said, who's Judy? And she said, well, you know the man you're renting from? It was his brilliant mathematician wife who was so abused by him that she shot herself in the head in your basement. And she had a daughter who was your daughter's age. So that made perfect sense. But what do you do? What do you do now?
Where do you go with that? As a mother, I wouldn't even know where to venture.
So my neighbor says, oh, no problem. Talk to our neighbor across the street. She is a healer, is what she called herself. I now come to find out she's a Reiki master and a hypnotist, and so she does a lot of different healing modalities. But she also had a priest that would stay with her on the weekends who was a chaplain at Catholic Medical Center. So I invited them over. That was a whole different story. Invited them over to bless the house, and they agreed. This sounded like Judy. Then they get up to leave. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, aren't you going to sprinkle holy water or something? And they said, we've been given guidance that you need to learn how to do this. I'm like, what, me? And, but I'm really good at taking instructions, even though I had no clue what I was doing. They told me, light a candle, have an imaginary conversation with Judy, which I did. And I'm sitting outside my daughter's room at the top of the stairs, and I'm telling Judy, this is my daughter, and I'm going to take care of her. Your daughter is grown, and she's gone, and she's fine, so it's time for you to go into the light. That's all they told me to do. I felt what I now call God bumps, not goosebumps, God bumps, or spirit bumps, or joy bumps, whatever. Blew out the candle, went to bed. A couple days later, I asked my daughter, so does the lady still come and sing to you at night? She said, no, but there's a little boy. And then there was a soldier, and then there was a Native American person, and you know, she would see them, and I had to learn how to communicate with them to help them to go to a better place. That started my path, my spiritual quest. And I went on to learn Reiki from Agnes Salette, and talking about people with different types of disabilities. Here I am, a single mom of 2 kids. I've got a good job, but I'm completely alone. I'm dealing with all this stuff. She was a Holocaust survivor, mother of 8. And anytime I'd start having a pity party, I would just look over across the street and go, pff, pff, what do I have to complain about? This woman.
Perspective is profound, right?
Is it not? So she became my inspiration and had survived through so much. And anyway, so she became my mentor for many years.
There are so many questions that the viewer of this would have, right? We know we had talked about previously this clinical, analytical, scientifically proven p-value of less than 0.005 to be true kind of world that we lived in. And to go from that to something that is not for many tangible until an experience may happen, or really that's it, right? It's like a believed to be true or have felt to be true, maybe not necessarily seen in terms of, you know, the general sense, or like can be caught on video, although we see these things all the time. But for the everyday person that may not have an experience to tie it to, when someone told you out of the blue and you had never had experience with it, that you were to light a candle and to just talk, how are you feeling? Like, were you having to kind of push through a curiosity or a discomfort or a lack of belief, or did you just go, I'm not sure what else to do? So, you know, how did people make that first step, as you had, into this like barrier of what is perceived to be appropriate or reasonable or whatever that divide is, and you can speak more to that, to the openness of allowing for that space that things can present themselves in? How do you talk to people in that space?
You know, I liken it to, we can't see electricity, but I'm not going to stick a fork in that socket. I know it's there. When people die, they pass over, most of them, if they've got a really good spiritual foundation, if they've got a good connection, they go into what we perceive the light or heaven, whatever you want to call it. But what happens when people are conflicted and they die, they tend to hang around their loved ones. They don't know where to go. And so they're not evil, most of them, they're just lost souls. So what you're just having a conversation. I have a great story. I have a friend whose husband died. Very connected, and she's a very psychic person. And every night, she pours a glass of wine for him and a glass of wine for her, and she sits there and has a conversation with him, tells him all about her day, and then when she's finished, if he hasn't drunk his wine, she drinks it for him. So the spiritual world is very real. It's the world of angels. It's the world of demons. It's the world, there's a whole other world that's beyond what we can see. And when we recognize that, we realize that we're just, we've heard the story, we're physical beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a physical experience, right?
Oh, I've heard meat skeletons driving around the sun.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're a little bit more than that, but yeah, exactly. So we have, there are multiple levels to us. There's the physical, then there's the mental, emotional, there's the spiritual, and so there's multiple different levels. And we have to just, once we accept that, and we accept that intuitive knowing, being in a medical profession, I look back now, when I used to do diagnostic ultrasound, I was really, really good at what I did. But I would have an intuitive knowing that this person has a cancer I have to find. And I would scan until I found it. I just had a knowing. And I look back now, and that was me tapping into my spiritual guides. Or this person, you need to look for this. And I just had an intuitiveness. And that's where that comes from, is tapping into that mental, emotional part of us that's not, you can't see it, but it's a knowing that we all have. And the more we foster that part of us, the more we acknowledge it, the more it happens.
That was the next question I had to ask you was, does everybody have the capacity?
Yeah.
And if everybody has the capacity, what is buffering those that may not, know? Like, are there actionables that people can take to make themselves more receptive, if that's the best word? But how is that possible? How are you able to do that?
There are many different techniques that you can use. One of them and we were just talking a little bit ago about being in that space of gratitude, of being accepting. And when we lift our energy, when we shift our energy up to a higher level of awareness based on, this is what I'm choosing for my life right now, then we tap into a higher realm of awareness. There is a scale that was created by,
I think Darwin.
There's one that's from Power versus Force, a book called Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. And it's a map of consciousness, and most people don't realize this. But if on a logarithmic scale of 0 to 1,000, with 1,000 being enlightenment, Christ consciousness, whatever, the lowest level energy?
Shame. That is what I was thinking of. 40 is the number.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just had this great presentation about that, hope, joy, love in the top, and then shame was the absolute bottom.
Guilt and shame. Mm-hmm. And so when you meet somebody who is depressed, they're down. They're looking down. Everything is down. It's lower compressed energy. When you see somebody who is in joy and they're exuberant, it's a higher energy. So the more we're able to consciously bridge and bring our energy up, the more we're able to tap into that. So it takes concerted effort, especially for those of us who've been through trauma in our life. And this is part of, hope is sort of the bridge. A lot of people talk about, don't give people hopium. Well, you can't go from fear, anger, shame, guilt to joy overnight. Hope is the bridge. You have to have a level of hope, of willingness to transcend. And so you get to that level, and then you stay there for a little bit, and then until you incrementally lift to a higher level. And the more, it's just like anything, practice makes permanent, not perfect. It's never perfect. Practice makes permanent. The more you do something, the better you get at it, the more comfortable you are. Mm-hmm. So I remember the first time talking with my angels. I speak with them all the time now, and I'd get something, and I'd like, I can't say that, no, and then I'd feel this nudge, like, go ahead. And then I would say it, and the person I was working with, the client or whomever I was working with, would be like, oh, that's exactly right. And I'm like, wow. But it took me to get past my fear of being rejected, humiliated, laughed at, whatever, those old fears, that low level vibe, to be able to just be like a child and say, this is what I'm picking up, whether or not it means something to you. That's just what I'm picking up. And it's amazing how many times people would say, oh, that's exactly right.
But it's such a universal theme in general that you're speaking about in terms of like radical acceptance, mm-hmm. Despite, or maybe because of the judgments that are out there.
Yes.
And, gosh, I got a 2-year-old that is just the wonderment and
mm-hmm.
the unfiltered version of joy and communication, and just the blessing of that.
Yes.
If we all had some of that childlike wonderment and unrestricted feeling,
yeah.
the way that would feel in general, regardless of what the theme is for it, right? Whatever the avenue is, would just be such a better place. So I wanted to comment on that, but I also wanted to bring in the box kind of view. You had mentioned, the different sort of orbits of, or spheres of sort of who we are. And someone had made reference to the fact that if someone has physical ailments or sicknesses, that sometimes it can be because things have penetrated through.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. There are 4, and again, the guides have elaborated on this with me as I was the scribe. I was imagine interviewing the unseen, And what they told us is there are 4 main parts to us. There's the physical body. This is that carries through each lifetime. This is the vehicle that drives, this is our car that drives us through life. And many people take better care of their car than they do their physical body. So we have to really take care of the physical. But then there's also the mental, the intellectual. The more we keep ourselves stimulated, we're here as creators. The more we create, I mean, you're talking, look at all the things that you just rattled off that you're doing. Those opportunities to create keeps you invested and excited and energized. We are
stressed. Did you say stressed? I'm just kidding.
There's good stress, and then there's
hashtag too blessed to be stressed, right?
That's right. So there's the intellectual, the stimulator, keeping ourselves engaged. But then there's the emotional. The emotions come across different lifetimes. So back up to the mental intellectual. Have you ever heard of a child that could just pick up and play a piano or violin that comes through with knowing? So that mental intellectual part of us comes through from lifetimes. So we still have some of that from
just that
prior
concept
lives.
is wild. Not to interrupt, but how, right? We all want to know how. And,
I know.
Energy is not created or destroyed. We accept that to be true in science. So then, but the form of that and like the what else, like how? I wish we knew all the specifics because it's fascinating.
It is. It's never-ending fascination, and that's what keeps the mind constantly searching and growing and learning. And then there's the emotional part of us. So the emotion also carries through from lifetime to lifetime, some parts of it. And so as a hypnotist, a lot of what I do is go back to where is the root of this emotion that gets stuck in the body that ultimately manifests itself as dis-ease. So going back to the root cause, which could be something that happened as a 3-year-old child. You've got this beautiful little boy that's just wonder in awe, and if somebody, when he's in that magical state, yells at him and tells him, no, you're stupid, boom, that goes right into their head and it sticks. So oftentimes those early traumas that may not be horrific trauma, but it could be a teacher or a friend or a parent, something that was said that was harsh to a child at a very early age that sticks in that mental emotional part of the body that causes disturbance. So going back to heal those parts of us too, we have to heal the emotional body. And then there is the spiritual. The spiritual is eternal. That is from lifetimes. You've heard of people who have recall, maybe, of multiple different lifetimes. So those are, the spirit lives on. And then there's other stories about that as well.
What's so interesting is and I'm going to take my leg off. Feel free to do the same and get comfortable.
Okay.
Fastest 5-pound weight loss plan this spring.
How's that? I'll take
coming
off
at
shoes.
you.
There we go.
I actually have a friend that's a master yoga instructor, and she always is grounded, always has the shoes off.
Well, this is the problem. Since COVID hit, I had closed down my 3-room office suite, and I'm at home. I work from home now, and I was just on the road last week, and I had to wear shoes for 3 days, and my feet were like, what are you doing to me? This is not normal.
Oh man, there's so many, I can appreciate when people are sort of watering down the level of depth of knowledge that they have. One of my most favorite teachers in graduate school was someone that could just talk at you where you were at, and you could sort of ask more as you go. And I can appreciate that there's so much of that happening. There's so much more in here. This is just little pieces. So you wrote several books.
Yes.
And how many books? What are they? Where do people find out more information?
Sure, you can find all the information on my loisherman.com website. So the very first book, and you know what? I have been conscripted to write these books. None of these books are my books. I have been asked to write because I think the Spirit knows that I'm the type of person that if I say I'm going to do something, by golly, I will do it. So the first book was based on me being hired. So here I am, this corporate person, corporate coach and designer, ultrasound systems designer. But I had this fascination with spirit and hypnosis. So on the side, I was studying hypnosis years ago. I was hired to investigate the deaths at an assisted living facility outside of Manchester. Now, this was not the deaths of the elderly. In a 2-year period, there were 40-something employees. They had attended 10 funerals of their own family members, aging and range from 16 to 60. And they're like, at the 10th funeral, they're like, what is going on here? This is strange. Something weird is going on. So they hired me, and the woman who hired me went into what we call a trance state. So if you want to talk to your angel or your grandmother or whatever, I, as a hypnotist, I am the guide, the scribe, and the protector. I help you to get into that altered state so that you can communicate with the unseen. And I'm tracking your journey for you, and I'm making sure you're safe. And then I'm bringing you back with all the information that you're wanting to achieve. So she goes into trance, and lo and behold, there are over 300 spirits that were trying to get their attention because they had been excavating and they wanted their bodies found. I'm like, what the flip? And the lead spirit, who was like in his 30s, said, I will take these young ones into the light if you promise to tell our story. So I promised. And I had recorded everything back then. This was around 2003.
Are you hearing this? Like, what? How do you receive?
Well, you would be the one talking. They speak through you. So,
okay, so like what I've seen in a movie sometimes.
Absolutely.
Right? You're talking out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I stay very grounded, very logical. I'm the logician. I'm asking the questions and taking the notes and speaking. And so she's in this altered state. So the messages are coming through her. And so she tells various stories from the different spirits that want their stories heard. And so they went into the light, and I had recorded, tape recorder back then, all of the sessions and started researching to write the book. The woman leaves and takes another job. And she says, oh, we don't need to do anything. So, and my mistake, I let it go fallow. I didn't pursue it. Life gets in the way. Fast forward 10 years. I've now decided, now I've left my corporate job, and I am at a BNI business networking business meeting, and this gentleman comes up to me and says, I need your help to get back in the job market. He was an out-of-work business executive. And when he came to see me, he said, I really can't afford your full rate, but I'm told I'm supposed to help you write a book.
Oh.
And I said, I have so many stories that, and I'm like, sure, yeah, I could certainly use help. I'd never written a book before. Again, my background was in science and mathematics and medicine. I was never one to be in literature. I never read novels, but I had done a lot of research papers and written a lot of application notes for Hewlett-Packard when I worked for them. So I write more logical type things. Anyway, so he comes for sessions, he gets well, he gets a job. I fell and broke my wrist. Slipped in my garden, broke my wrist. And in my meditation, my healing meditation, I hear this little voice say, what about our story? You promised. And I went, holy cannoli, yes I did. So then...
And you weren't frightened or alarmed, or like there's not that sense of like if I was interrupted doing a favorite pastime by a thing that I couldn't see that was reminding me of a deficit or something that I hadn't done. There's a trust though, right? There's a there's a trust and there's a position that you have, and so that's why it feels maybe a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There are some nasties. I just call them nasties. Those, it's a different story. Those I work with the archangels, and they, I'm just the shipping department for the nasties.
Okay.
I
want to talk about nasties too after this.
They're fun. Not in a different way.
I know.
But anyway, no, this was a child. It was just like a little child walking up to you. You get comfortable with it's just a child saying, what about my story? Mm-hmm. So when I saw Peter next, I said, so Peter, let's see what story we're supposed to write. He goes into trance, and bang, he's in the middle of the Manchester Mills. Big hydro-powered equipment and no on-off switches. This is back in the 1800s. And they used the small children, as mostly boys, to crawl into this equipment to mend the belts, to oil the belts. And there was a decree that if they were injured, they were taken in the basement and euthanized. taken out in the middle, put in barrels, taken out in the middle of the night and dumped, put a carcass over them, and their mother would be told they ran away. That's why these guys were pissed.
Whoa.
It was that's why they were killing the family members. You, number one, we were company men. We were doing our job. How dare you tell my mom I ran away? So it was really heartfelt. They were really passionate about to get their story right. It was called The Great Unspeakable. So what happened with Peter, I was thinking we would have more children's stories. No, who came through was the man whose job it was to kill the children. The wife of the superintendent who came through, what are you doing? You've got to stop this. So it was the stories, it became, instead of the wounded children of the Manchester Mills, it was the wounded heroes, because there were so many different heroes.
How do the spirits get in to be interviewed? You know, I mean, I'm just seeing a funnel over my head, but you know, is there a process that one gets that space over another, or?
Oh yeah, there's definitely, when we clear energy, our spirits, it's typically the bullies that come through, the stronger ones come through first, and then it's the next ones are the wannabes. So there's typically layers of spirits that we will pull from someone or lift. I prefer to use the word lift from someone. If somebody's been hospitalized a lot, chances are they have a lot of spirits around them, especially if they're a beautiful bright light, because these spirits are just looking for the light. And
his physical light?
Your light.
Physical.
Your physical light. And so that, their light, because the spirit does not have an energy of their own. We're energy generators. Our bodies are amazing. You know that. As in the medical world, the body is absolutely fascinating.
Sure.
We're generators, we are transmitters, and we're receivers. And so when we transmit a lot of energy, we can be seen by other people. Other people pick up on it. I'd like to segue to something that Archangel Michael told me in the very first channeled session I had with him, probably almost 30 years ago. And he came through and he said, you must ask for protection first, then healing, then empowerment, across all levels: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, psychic, social, professional, financial, environmental, relational, technological. He went on. And at the time, I wasn't quite sure what he was talking about, but the whole thing of protection first, I now recognize that the protection is to protect from these lost souls who are looking for the light. And if we're not protected, we end up taking on these lost souls.
Is that the nasties?
No.
Oh.
That's another level of protection. The nasties are trying to take out the lights of the light ones.
Whoa.
That's a whole different animal. Those are what the church might call demons, and those are very real.
Wow.
But most people aren't aware of how they can really affect.
I mean, if you want to know more, and certainly, as you can see, the scratch on the surface is quite small, and what a dangler, you know, I mean, there's so much to learn about. Visit loisherman.com. You can link to the many books if that was something that interested you from the website, as well as how to contact her and the work that she and her associates are doing over there in Nashua, New Hampshire, and maybe remotely. Do you guys?
Yes, actually, my home is in Amherst.
Okay.
So we do everything remote. We had a client from Ireland yesterday, another one from Spain.
Nice.
On
So yeah,
Monday.
remotely too.
Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh yeah.
And they do
everything.
distance healing. There's a lot of opportunities. So if you're interested, go to the website. I really appreciate you guys joining us. And Lois, thank you for sharing some of, I mean, this is just incredible, different, intriguing, sort of fascinating, awe-inspiring, unbelievable kinds of things. And I'm so grateful for your gift, and I look forward to reading through it. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. I didn't even touch on that yet.
Oh, well, some of it was in there. We're going to have to do a take two in a session two. For more information, go to our website, visit Less Like More Heart to see the things we're doing in the community, and stay tuned to the next episodes that I'm sure we're bringing Lois back to dig in a little deeper.
Absolutely.
Till next time, put your best foot forward.